Welcome, Stephanie. Let me introduce you to our listeners really quickly. Stephanie is not only an amazing coach and like over at Cultivated Sense, where she helps you, and correct me if I'm not saying it right, helps you find ordinary ways to live an extraordinary life, right?
Yeah. Yes, that was good. That was perfect.
Perfect. Yeah, but she's also been a friend of mine and a companion on that journey to discovering what our purpose is and what living on purpose means for us. So a couple years back, we started these little Google Hangouts to learn as we go, and that was super fun. And I loved just chatting with her on a weekly basis. So I'm excited to have her here and share some of her story and some of her goodness with you. So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I missed the learning as you go. We should revive it. I think that it was
Yes.
for us and for other people. A
Yeah.
lot of people actually watched it. I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, I think that's the motivation why I started this thing, this podcast or yeah, video session, because I think, you see people up there, doing their thing, and you're like, oh, this sounds amazing, but I don't know how to get there, so I'm not going to start at all. And that's kind of sad because we all go through that learning process, and I want to show people how to do it. So that's why you're here today.
Okay.
um, so do you want to tell us a bit more about Cultivating Sense or Cultivated
Sure.
Sense?
Sure. Yeah. Well, it came out of the idea that as I was learning about coaching in the field, I saw that um, a lot of people feel like they didn't have access to life coaching or how to change their life. And they were like, well, I need a guru, I need an expert. And a lot of times, what they needed was to tap into what they already had.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I thought about like, well, some people were calling it like common sense. And they said, well, I have common sense, so I'm okay. But cultivated sense is about if you missed it, if you missed the common sense, you can cultivate that with what you have. And so, like you said, it's ordinary ways to live extraordinarily. You don't have to, I mean, Bali is great, but you don't have to quit your job and move to Bali and become a monk. It's about the baby steps and the little things and the way you change your lifestyle. And it really came from a place of I really wanted to change myself so
Mm-hmm.
that I could change other people who could change other people who could change the world. So she talked a little bit about living extraordinarily. I have recently come up with a new program called Embrace Your Extraordinary. And every single person that I've coached, that I've asked, and other people, which Jenny helped out, which I'm really grateful for, um, I wanted something to capture how I actually coach, which is using what you have. And Embrace Your Extraordinary was just, that's where that came from.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very excited. I started in the fall of 2014. So it's been, oh, I'm sorry, 2013.
13,
So
yes.
yeah, it's been a year and a half, almost 2 years. And I came from that same place where I was like, I know this great person, Jacob Sokol. How do I get from me to him? Like, I was like, what should I do? And then I focused on what I could do. Like, what can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? And so I've done a lot of different experiments. Learning as we go was an experiment, one-on-one coaching. I just did like a due day, which was like a 4-hour, 5-hour coaching session in one day.
Ooh.
I'm just like trying stuff. So it's been fun. It's been an interesting journey, but it's been very, very fun.
Yeah. What was one of the hardest challenges for you in the beginning?
Hmm. I think I wasn't very focused.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can get a lot of information, right? On the internet, you can subscribe to a million different newsletters. You can, you have Jacob, you have Brian, you can be in an inner circle. There's so many options. And I think you can lose your message in trying to follow someone else's. And then even if you follow someone else's, the next week there's another person's message. You're like, but this was really good, and this was really good. And so I think I was trying to imitate other people, but not even consistently imitating someone else. I was imitating this person, this person, this person, this person. And when I started to get rid of some of that noise without the guilt, because I kind of was like, well, I love this newsletter. I don't want to give it up. I want to keep reading this. It
Yeah.
was just too much. And so I had to learn that, to focus and to know that what I can work with what I have, and less is more. So that was really, really helpful for me.
So what comes up for me with that, because what I've noticed, it's not wrong to get inspiration from other people, like look at them and what do I admire about them, and then work with that. And you don't want to be like that one person. You want to see, okay, what is it, the one thing that inspires me from that person, and what's the other thing that inspires me from the other person, and then integrate it, because that's going to tell you what's inside of you and how, yeah, where do you see the balance?
I think that you are unique. Like no one can do it like you. So if there's something that you admire about someone or that inspires you, you're going to translate that into something that is only you, right? So if I like the inner circle, like I wouldn't create a group that meets every Tuesday at 8 p.m. and call the inner circle. I would say, well, what about, like you said, what about this is something that I'm drawn to, and then put my own spin on it.
Yeah.
And so I think that as long as you are attributing, like, that was really tough for me too. Like, do I cite someone? Do I say, oh, I learned this from so-and-so? But the things that you are attracted to, you're attracted to because they are you. So once you carry out that plan or that program that is you, it's like you're reflecting what they did, but it's already inside of you. So it's pretty much you. Does that make sense? I don't know if that was confusing.
It makes sense to me, because I've experienced the same thing. So because I always want to quote people and give them credit for what they do, because it means a lot to me when people do that with the things I say. But then you have to find that sweet spot where it becomes your truth. So it's that spot when it becomes your truth, that's when it's yours, and it's okay to use it that way. So you don't just want to, copy what that person is saying, but impersonate it. And if you do that, then you can share it as your truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That was a much better way of putting it. I like what you said, and what I thought of when you were saying that is, once if you're inspired by someone or something and you adopt it as your own and you give them credit and it comes out of you, like if it's in alignment with who you are, it will be you, not them, right? But people say, oh, that's similar, or that seems like, but it's you because it's something that's in alignment with your values, your purpose, your spirit. So it comes off as you.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, we got it. We got it now.
So maybe let's look at those ordinary ways. What's one way that I could live an extraordinary life right now with a little baby step? Like, what's your favorite baby step?
Oh, my favorite baby step. It's actually an exercise, and I got this from another coach, so I will attribute to them. When it seems like your baby steps are really small, to take whatever action you're doing. Let's say you want to write a book, or let's say you want to, meditate for 5 minutes a day, and that seems like a really small baby step. Is to multiply that out by a full year. So if you say, I want to meditate 5 minutes a day, so it seems very small, insignificant, but times that 5 minutes times 365 days. And you're like, oh my gosh, whatever that is, I don't know the math. That is so many hours of meditation. And it seems more, profound and more inspiring. Or you're going to write for 10, 15 minutes a day. And times that by 365. So sometimes when people get stuck in the moment, I want them to think about the long term, a year, 2 years. So if you've done, 500 hours of meditation, what kind of person are you going to be? You've written for 300 hours. So you feel differently about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis. And I love walking clients through that. And they're like, oh my gosh, this is significant. Okay, my 5 minutes is going to add up to this many hours. So that's my favorite, when you kind of get to see it on a big scale.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that idea. Because, yeah, you're right. It seems so insignificant sometimes. But yeah, when I look back at just how much I've written this year already, that's insane. I mean,
Yeah. And you can kind of, people, especially when you starting out, you're worried about credibility. You're worried about being an expert. And when you have these concrete terms where, on a Sunday when I don't feel like doing anything, but I'll write for 5 minutes, because I know if I write for 5 minutes every day, at the end of the year, I'll have so many hours, that lends to your credibility, to your self-esteem, to your confidence. You can say, hey, last year I was consistent. Every day I took 5 minutes out to write, and I'm this many hours more of an expert than I was last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did the shift happen for you from feeling like you're not expert enough to being an expert? Or
Great
do
question.
you feel that way?
I still don't feel like an expert. That's the truth. I still don't feel like an expert. I feel like I'm always learning. I feel like I'm always like, the other day I watched it was like, Malcolm Gladwell spoke at the New York Public Library, and he said something like, if you're not changing your mind constantly, you're not thinking. And I was like, oh my gosh, because when you get new information, you form new beliefs and things like that. So I feel like I've gone through several like evolutions of my business, where when I first started, I was like, I'll do the website by myself. I'll just do that, and each cycle it feels like I'm ramping things up to be more professional, to get more experience and things like that. So I still don't feel like I'm an expert. I feel like I have a long way to go. But I think after something like what you said is like, to myself, when it's just me, I'm kind of like, yeah, I've done these things and I've coached these people. But when you hear from other people, they'll say, I went from this place to this place. Or one of my clients, she's now traveling the world as a PR consultant. And this girl, before I spoke to her, was like scared to tell people that she was a PR consultant. So when I hear stuff like that, then I'm like, oh, sometimes I do stuff. Like sometimes things happen after I talk to people. I don't know. So it's mainly been seeing the effects. I think that makes me feel, like what I do is legitimate or something like that. But yeah, I still don't feel like an expert. I don't know if I ever will.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And you're so right. It's about the results, the outcomes. And if they are there, even if you don't feel like an expert, you're doing okay. You're helping people. So
yeah. And like I said, the goal for me is to improve my life. And I know that by improving my life, I'm getting closer and closer to the best version of myself. And I want to help people do that too, so then they can encourage other people to do the same. So I feel like when I'm on my game, when I'm, exercising and eating better and learning, I feel like I'm getting there. In addition to people saying, well, yeah, I was scared to tell people I was a PR consultant and now I'm traveling the world. And I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I didn't know that was going to happen. Like, that's cool. So.
Yeah, that is such an interesting topic, I think. Why are we so afraid to stand up to and PR consultant? That almost seems like, an acceptable job. So,
yeah.
I mean, I felt the same way telling people like, oh yeah, I'm gonna start this video series and I'm a speaker, writer, and coach. And like, is that like, what will people think of me?
Yeah.
So PR consultant already seems like a good job. So why do we?
Shame. Yeah, it's so funny because um, in the same vein, being a PR consultant is like you are an advocate for other people's stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like your job is to publicize people's stuff. So for you not to be able to publicize your own stuff, that's weird. But it's the same way with us, right? We're coaches. We help people do stuff, but yet we're scared of our abilities or we don't want to tell people. And so it's just funny that as I coach her and as I coach people, I coach myself too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling them, feelings follow action. Take the baby steps, believe in yourself, all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm actually talking to myself, maybe.
Yeah.
Actually, I am. Like most of the time.
Yeah.
And she called me out on it too. She was like, yeah, why don't you do this? Or why didn't this is much more valuable than what you charge me for. She told me straight up. And I was like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
um yeah, it's just a funny thing. For other people, we can go to bat, we can stand up for other people, but when it's ourselves, I don't know what it is. We don't see ourselves in the same light,
Mm-hmm.
Something in someone else. I think that's in the Brené Brown book, like courage on someone else. That's great. Vulnerability on someone else, that's enviable. But for me, it's like I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So that's a battle. That's a constant battle.
Yeah, I love it. And it's good I think that's so important to see, just because we are coaches doesn't mean we know everything. Like, we're just people and we made it our mission to help other people. But that doesn't mean that we can't be helped or learn from that experience. And I love it.
Yeah. I love that too, because I actually, when I first started coaching, I felt, like I said, the inaccessibility issue is like, okay, well, Deepak Chopra, he never gets mad. I'm like, I was just mad 2 seconds ago. So like, how can I'm here, he's there, like there's this big gap. Like, what should I do? Like, I can't bridge the gulf. And then you see people like, they fall off the wagon or they have a bad day or they have a lazy day or, but they're able to come back from it and they're real people. That's very admirable. That's respectable. People can relate to that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, something that I strive for. Like, I try to be as real as possible and authentic as possible. My life is not perfect. I'm not, like I said, I'm not where I want to be. I got a long way to go. And the people that I've worked with really, really appreciate that when I say, yeah, I've made this mistake and I'm still making this mistake and I'm learning from it.
I think this is a good point to ask our signature question. What would you tell your high school self if you could travel back in time?
Sure. My high school self. I think I limited myself a lot because of external pressures, perceptions. As a high schooler, I let my guidance counselor, I only applied to 4 colleges. I thought I was going to stay close to home. I didn't think I had options.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't thinking big enough. I think that was the problem.
Yeah.
And if I was thinking bigger, I would apply to more schools or thought about, taking time off or working. I let myself be small.
Mm-hmm.
And now, I wish that I would go for it. I had dreams, I had notebooks, I had things that I was like excited about that I wanted to learn about, but it wasn't acceptable. It was like, this is the path you need to go on. Only apply to these schools. Do this, fit in these boxes. And not in like a stereotype, like, oh, you should have been so. I wanted to like go to Puerto Rico to these conferences. I found funding to go to this conference. It was a People of Color conference. And I was like, I really want to go. And I didn't go.
Oh.
And there was opportunity to work for this Youth Leadership Institute. I didn't work. I like spent the summer working for like a Burlington coat factory, which is like a clothing store. So I wish I would have, listened to that voice, because the voice is saying, there's more and it's okay if you explore. And I didn't feel like it was okay back then.
I love it.
It's hard, it's like 18, that was like 10 plus years ago. I'm just like, God, I was, I could have been in a very different place, but I am where I am because of the choices that I made. But, I think there was a whole world open to me that people at that time were not exploring. My friends were staying close to home. My mom was like, don't leave me. And I was like, okay, mom.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would tell her, be open, go for it. Just try it. It's an experience. You'll be okay either way. If you go for it, if you land flat on your face, you can do something else. You're smart enough. You're fine. That's what I would tell her.
Yeah, that's a wonderful message. And I would love to spread that to the high school kids now. It's like, go out, explore. You're going to
Go
be
for
okay.
Yes, you only have limited time, and then you get older, you're like, oh man, I wish I would have done this. If I would have started this sooner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
All right, it's been a pleasure. So where could our listeners find out more about you, and especially tell us more details about your program, Embrace the Extraordinary?
Sure. So you can find more about me at cultivatedsense.com, like cultivated and sense, like common sense, but cultivated. I have Facebook too. I've been very active on Facebook, facebook.com/cultivated sense, Twitter, at cultivated sense.
Yeah.
And I recently started a Google Plus page. I'm trying it. I'm going for it. Whatever. Cultivated Sense.
Yeah.
The program is called Embrace Your Extraordinary. So I was looking for a title for it, and it's going to be like a specific 6-step program to embrace what you have and bring out and activate your extraordinary. And so it's basically like the program I would have put myself through, like dealing with the foundation, the base, like what's the mindset shift that has to happen, and then talking about the transformation. So like, what's the middle part? Like, where do we go from here? And then giving you the logistics to deal with that. So like, how is your life going to be different? What kind of systems will you put in place? And I got this idea. I did a quarterly check-in, something also brand new. I was like, this year I want to check in every quarter. So I had a phone call into March, and I found that people had made all these New Year's resolutions, but like didn't have systems in place. Like, I want to lose 30 pounds. Okay, like let's get specific. Like, what's the mindset? What's the transformation? What does that actually look like? So for anything you want to do, any goal you have, this will be a program to help you implement that goal and achieve it, obviously. So I'm working on that. I am going to be in a book this year too. Yeah, I put in my book submission in March, and the book I think it's coming out by the end of the year, I think. So I will have more details about that on my social media page, but nothing as of yet. And my next step, I'm just working on the program. On the side, I'm writing a little book, and that's gonna be called. I'm still playing with the title, The Skeptic's Guide to Life Coaching. And that's just, I've heard so many like excuses and stories of why life coaching isn't for you. And it's not like a defense of life coaching at all. It's more so like the funny things that I've heard, like, that's against my religion. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's interesting that you say that.
It's like self-improvement is against my religion.
Bettering myself is offending my God. I'm like, oh, okay, cool, good to know. And then just like figuring out stuff. This is like, life is hitting me. I'm moving possibly to Durham, North Carolina. I got engaged. So I am, planning a wedding. So it's like just, doing the baby steps, keeping it consistent, and like making sure all areas of my life are working on the full cylinders. So yeah.
Yeah, amazing. So much fun to talk to you again. And I would love to revive the learning as we go.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. That was so much fun. There's so much learning to be done.
Yes. Yeah, cool. So, guys, go check out Stephanie. Follow her on social media for all the updates on the exciting program coming up. And yeah, I'm excited to read the part of the other book and your book and whatever's coming up.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thank you so much for having me. Jenny's amazing, and I'm just glad we were able to reconnect and like literally pick up where we left off. So I'm
Definitely.
excited.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.